Hey, how's y'all doing? This is your host, the Whiteologist, Mr. Blow Your Minds, and welcome to another Black Minds News live report. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to my family that should be in the house, and I know the agents sitting up in here. Can you believe that yesterday I had 2,937 subscribers? After yesterday's show, they came in, they say 4, but they took away 6. Can you believe that, man? What is it that Black Minds News do that has a stick up in your back like that? The fact we're just doing news. Is it not public information? But whatever. So anyway, we welcome you over here to Black Minds News. First and foremost, again, to say what's good to my subscribers, my day ones. Thank you for clicking on the video and coming by. Whether you catch it live or catch it on the replay, it seems like the minute this show goes up, it go up for about an hour, then it dies right out. I can't wait till I go to court with this. But anyway, all the data, all the stuff that I got to just show how they just kill it off. Can you imagine that? A show that's been around for 2012. How do you going to defend the fact that you're going to say that somebody didn't even come at that time? I have a video that I can show that I've been in there over 300,000, 50,000, so forth. So how you going to defend that? Right? Yeah, okay. Cut the check. Don't worry about it. So anyway, welcome over here to the most hated show on the black corner of the internet. Past advisors, we had to come down due to the thumbnail or the title of the show. Welcome to the most hated show. Go down the aisle. We always got a grand opening over here. Happen to see something to make you feel some kind of way. Remember, the motto of my show is the truth. Don't need no partner. So again, as I was talking about, as I was looking for things to put on for today's show, just the monotonous of the part that every time that I keep doing this show, somebody wants to try to make it appear as if like, okay, no one wants to hear what you say, but I don't have to rig anything. It's you rigging, right? You rigging in the background, and then you trying to make it appear as like, well, nobody's trying to hear. Well, maybe they not. But the point is, you making sure that don't happen. Because obviously, you offended by what I talk about. The fact is, this is just the truth. And the truth ain't going to never need no partner. Whether you want to accept it or not, that all this does is just put it on you. Don't you? It's kind of like a boomerang. You know how when people sit and conspire and try to manipulate things for the benefit of themselves, don't they realize that they putting stuff on themselves? Obviously, they don't get that yet because certain people they just don't understand it, but they do what they got to do. So anyway, that's y'all business. So on today's show, what I want to talk about is the fact that it said that there's a $20 million payout settlement that was for a black man named William Green. Right? So let me go ahead and let's put this up on the screen, because what we have to look at is the fact that $1 million, right? 20 million. I remember one time I got a comment from a person who watched the show, and what they said is look at you trying to freeze it up. Yeah, look at that. They're just trying to freeze it up, huh? Ain't that something? So I got a comment from somebody who either passed by, he come by periodically, or he might be just like this agent that sit up in here. That, the minute you go on live, one of them come in here and they sit and some of them are manipulated, they sit down, they dox and shit, all kind of stuff, right? But the point he said was that he had said in his comment that black folks seem to want to get in confrontation so that they can get a paycheck. I had to tell him, wait a minute, man, what are you talking about? Dude, that sound logical to you? Do you really believe that people get into confrontations and try to be in situations so that they lose their life just so that their families can benefit off their death? I mean, if that's the way you look at it, if that's your rationale, then who are we to argue with you with that? But sometimes a lot of people may see over here that I do these shows that have to do with, Again, we're Black Minds News. We're not solely just about black folks, but we do because as we don't have as much black media that talks from our point of view, the way we see it, right? Not like the mainstream media. So a lot of times, a lot of shows will be based on from that black perspective or black stories. Then once in a while we get a story like this one. And this story here is kind of a just, well, I guess say police and the black man, right? So let me show you what it's showing here, right? So as you see there, it says a $20 million settlement reached in police killing of Handcuff man. Let me say that again. $20 million settlement reached in police killing of Handcuff man, right? Not sure if any of y'all heard about this or not, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. And it talks about a College Park, Maryland. As Maryland County has agreed to a $20 million settlement with the family of a man who was handcuffed in a patrol car when a police officer shot and killed him, county officials said Monday. The Prince George County police officer who killed William Green in January was arrested on charges including second-degree murder and has a trial scheduled for next year. Michael Owens Jr. was a 10-year veteran of the police department, has been in jail since his arrest. Green, 43, of Washington, D.C., was unarmed with his hands cuffed behind his back when Owens shot him 6 times. County Executive Angela Alsobrook said during a news conference Monday, she noted that Owens was the first police officer in the county history to be charged with murder for killing while on duty. I'm deeply sorry for your loss, Alsobrook told Green's mother, who was joined at the news conference by Green's adult daughter and son. There is no appropriate price tag to accompany a loss like that one. But we believe that the actions taken that night against Mr. Green and ultimately taken against his family warrant this settlement. Also, Brooks said, Green's daughter, SHELLYGREEN, said her life has been flipped completely upside down by his killing. She said the family will use the settlement proceeds to preserve her father's legacy and combat the evil of police brutality. Words cannot express the pain and sorrow and emptiness that we feel, she said. I hardly sleep at night because that's when I think of my daddy the most. Family attorney William Billy Murphy described the settlement as historic and said it reflects the senseless nature of the killing. In my 50 years, I have never seen a case this brutal, this senselessly brutal, this depraved, he said. Murphy said Alsobrook, the county's former top prosecutor, inherited a police department with a history of corruption and racism. Alsobrook recently formed a task force to identify ways to possibly reform police department's hiring, training, and use of force policies. Owens is black, and so was Green. In this case, the takeaway is that the black life of Mr. Green truly mattered, and the black lives of his mother and his 2 children truly matter, Murphy said. Investigators did not find any evidence of a fight between Owen and Green before the officer fatally shot him. January 27th, the police report said. That finding contradicts statement on the night of the shooting by a police department spokeswoman who told reporters that 2 independent witnesses said they saw or heard a struggle of some sort coming from the police patrol car before they heard a loud bang. Owens had handcuffed Green behind his back after responding to a traffic accident and finding him sleeping in his vehicle, apparently under the influence of an unknown substance, the report said. Owens then put Green in front passenger seat of the patrol car, which he did have a partition between the front and back seat. Did not have a partition between the front and back seat. Officers are permitted to transport arrest suspects in the front when a patrol car lacks partitions, police said. Prosecutor Renee Joey said in January that Green complied with officers' command when he was taken out of the car and handcuffed. Joy said Green posed absolutely no threat. Investigators did not find any weapons in Green's possession or in his vehicle. During a press conference shortly after Green's shooting, Police Department spokeswoman CHRISTINA COTTERMAN said the two witnesses told police they either saw or heard a struggle before the shooting. Cotterman also said officers smelled PCP and believed the man was under the influence of that drug. However, the county police chief later said PCP did not apply to have been involved and that no count of a struggle in the cruiser could be corroborated. Shooting was not caught on body camera video because the officer did not have one. Owens' trial is scheduled to start March 22nd of 2021. Prince George County has nearly 1 million residents, and its police department is Maryland's fourth largest law enforcement agency, with more than 1,500 officers covering a wide swath of Washington, D.C. suburb. Earlier this month, the Washington Post reported that the police department earlier warning system flagged Owens months before he shot Green. Owen triggered the system by using force twice in quick successions last summer. But his supervisor had not been formally notified until January and did not act before Owen killed Green, the newspaper reported. Owens was involved in at least 2 other shootings. In 2011, he fatally shot a man who pointed a gun at him after Owens left an event at a police headquarters. The department said Owens was placed on administrative leave after that killing. 2009, Owens was off duty when someone tried to rob him outside his home. The Post reported police officials said the would-be robber fired, but Owens was not hit and returned fire. The assailant fled, according to police. Okay. Well, that there is the story there. We will take a quick break and be right back. All right, we are black, right? So that there was a story about what was in the articles about the 20 million. And let me give you the origins of it, of the news story that broke when it originally happened. And then I will give you my dissertation after that about this article. So let's go ahead and do this, right? Check this out. I'll be right back.
Part of the reason why the chief went ahead and said, I'm going to go ahead and get this officer arrested. It was right here inside of this building yesterday at Prince George's County Police Department headquarters, where Chief Hank Stawinski said, as far as he's concerned, what happened on Monday night is a crime. Now, I can tell you that, think about this, the family here is now dealing with a loss, and now nobody can tell them exactly why their loved one was killed. We can also tell you that that is the reality here, and I want to break down about 3 things that you can know about this situation at hand right now during this investigation. First, I want to start with the charges. Corporal Michael Owen is charged with a second-degree murder, manslaughter, and weapons charges. Owen shot William Green as he sat handcuffed in the front passenger seat of a police cruiser. This happened around 8 o'clock on Monday night on St. Barnabas Road at Winston Street in Temple Hills. Now, Green ended up in custody after police say he got into several car crashes out there on St. Barnabas Road on Monday night. Now, police first said Green was believed to be on drugs and that 2 witnesses saw or heard an altercation before those deadly shots were fired. Listen, We now know police have not been able to confirm those two details. Now, next, I want to get to who is Corporal Owen. Well, we know he's a 10-year veteran with the department and works in the Patrol Bureau. And WUSA 9 was able to uncover that this is not the first time he's been involved in a deadly encounter with a suspect. Previous reports show Owen killed a man who threatened him with a gun back in 2011. He also shot someone during an attempted robbery outside of his home in 2009. Owen was not charged in either one of those incidents. Now, lastly, I really want to address a question that a lot of people came up with when this news first broke about this story, which is why was William Green handcuffed and put in the front seat of that police car? Well, the answer is simple. It is a part of Prince George's County's standard operating procedures. It says in their manual that arrestees should be put in the front seat of the police car unless that car has a barrier between the back and front seats. The chief says that they do this for the safety of their officers.
That police officer is in a better position to control someone or prevent injury to a person if they have access to them in the front seat of that car.
Now, I can tell you right now, we checked with the departments in our area to see if they had similar policies. We were able to hear back from D.C. and Fairfax County. We can tell you that D.C., it is a part of their policy that every time that they transport a suspect, that suspect is put into the back right seat of the car so that way they can keep an eye on them. And in Fairfax County, they don't specify whether it's the front or the back seat, but we can tell you that they do have in-car recording. So they record every single time on video camera every time that they transport someone in custody. So, Reese, obviously a lot to digest here, but we're going to stay on top of this story in the coming days and bring people the very latest on air and on WUSA9.com.
You know what? Thank you for that, Michael. A very curious policy indeed, and certainly the recording in the car is something that would have helped here. I will give the police credit for expedience. One thing I've criticized them for in the past is waiting and bowing to public pressure. They moved very quickly in this one. Thanks again, Michael. And as he just said, we have more information on this story on our website and free WUSA 9 app. I have more thoughts in my final thought. Now let's go to Andy.
Now, I know you're sitting up in here, right? Right? I know you're sitting up in here, right? Ain't that something, man? I'm glad when you brushing your teeth and look at yourself in your face, you know what you see? I know what you see. I don't need to run. They don't need to run up out of here. He is who he is, right? It's funny how you tell him what is already public information. You got to come up in here and try to rig it up. Because it's too smooth, it's too right. It's not what you can do, right? But see, that's what you do. You hide behind, right? You hide behind what you do. Show your face, man. I'll show you mine, right? You ain't gonna do that because that's who you are. Exactly what you do. Sad, man. But that's how it is, right? Nobody wants to reveal the hidden and dirtiness of what they do, right? You want to sit there and say that, oh, I don't have my streaming is not smooth. Hey, you know what the fuck I pay for my damn internet? So I know it's you sitting your ass up in here, right? Anyway, you ain't gonna stop this show because it ain't about what you think it's about. I'm talking to you, right? So check this out and let's move on. There's a story that's coming out of Maryland County and Washington, D.C. is talking about this. They have agreed to do a $20 million settlement. Now, look at this now. It's like every time now that a settlement is coming out, it's becoming a little bit bigger, right? This would be 1,000 or 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, right? Now, since the Breonna Taylor situation is coming out, it seems like the settlements are becoming, as they keep using the word, historic, right? Historic. So are they trying to imply that these payments, these settlements that they're making, that it's like a lottery if this should happen to you, that your family can now get the killing of a black person settlement for a large sum to get your family out of the muck and mire? Is that what this is now? To exchange for a life, in order way to give you your reparations is to give you a $20 million settlement, and for somebody in your family had to be killed by a police officer? We ain't trying to go for that, right? But this story is based on the simple fact that it's about a man, and the man name is going to be William Green, who was handcuffed in a police car, right? And he was shot and killed by the police officer. Okay, now this has happened in George County, and this happened back in January when there was arrest and charge of, they say he was charged with second-degree murder, and his trial is scheduled to be next year. An officer name is Michael Owens Jr. He's a 10-year veteran of the police department and has been in jail ever since the January incident. William Green was 43 years old. He was from Washington, D.C. According to the story, it talks about he was unarmed and handcuffed with his hand behind his back, and he was shot 6 times. Now, the county executive, Angela Alsobrook, she said during this news conference that Owens was the first police officer in the county's history to be charged with murder for killing while on duty. Well, are we surprised at that? We shouldn't be surprised, because why? He's a black man, right? We see that majority of the time that white officers have been getting somewhat of a slap on the wrist. We've seen the one with Laquan McDonald. We also seen the one in Dallas with the Amber Geiger. But to get the full charge of murder, that is not as been stated or seen, but the fact that they were incarcerated for the crimes. But this one here, they're paying out $20 million settlement when you look at how this whole story goes about. And we see that they came out and they did the sorry for the loss to the family. Those who were surviving was his daughter, and a son. And they go into talking about how the fact that there was no appropriate price tag to accompany a loss like this one, and that the actions that had taken that night on Mr. Green equated to the fact that not just he lost his life, but it was against the family. And this historic settlement of this $20 million is warranted. Now, the thing is, it's not that I'm not suggesting or stating that the family is not entitled to being compensated for their loss, especially in the manner of which it happened, under the circumstance of it just being a traffic, incident that turned deadly. Again, we don't understand how it gets there. But then the fact that you have a black man with a black man, and how did it get there? We'll probably never ever get to the end of that, right? And so what we see is that the daughter, her name is SHELLYGREEN. She's talking about how her life has been flipped completely upside down, and that she and the family has vowed that they're going to use the settlement proceeds to preserve her father's legacy and to combat against the evils of police brutality. Says she's having a lot of sleepless nights because a lot of times she's thinking about her father, and that the attorney for the family was saying that using the term historic settlement. Again, they're going to use this term historic settlement, but in order for you to come up, right? Let's think about that as, those who come out of certain environments and conditions, that it's a come up in exchange for one of your family members, right? So it's kind of like you had to pick somebody in your family, and we can get out of this situation if we let this, take place. It's unfortunate that these things be happening, especially under the circumstances. But that's what it seemed like they're subliminally are stating. That, look, you can get a $20 million settlement. That one got 10. This one got 18. This one got 25. You get what I'm saying? This is not the kind of money you wanted to inherit. We understand insurance, right? When somebody has an insurance policy and something should happen before them, and then you inherit from that, that's different. But when it's in situations that could seem to be preventable, you're going to take it because, again, It's not to replace, but that is part of your justice. And so we don't want this to be a trend. But you see that they already got the settlement before they even got through the criminal process. That's the thing we got to keep watching for. They are given the settlement. And then we got to look at the fact that the settlements are coming out of who? The taxpayers, right? These numbers are getting bigger, but who's flipping the bill? So that means you're putting it back on the citizenry, right? And so that means that in the areas that we live in, that the more settlements that might be paid out, that means higher in the taxes. So what's going to be the deter to stop this when they keep talking about reform? But anyway, according to this lawyer that is representing the family, said in his 50 years, he said he's never seen a case this brutal, senseless, brutal, and depraved. Think about that. Somebody who's in a traffic accident, and then police arrive, and then somehow from you being apprehended and put handcuffs on, somehow it turned out you getting shot 6 times and end up being dead. And then, as they talk about in the story here, they want to say that they are having a lot of problems already because the person who ended up inheriting this police department had already a history of corruption and racism. And so this ALSOBROOK was coming in, tried to implement some kind of new task force to identify ways to possibly reform police departments. Now, how do you reform police departments is the question. Is there policy, or is this something about people's humanity? Let me say that again. Is correcting corruption and racism really a policy problem, or is it a humanity problem? Is it people? And, think about it like this. You can be in your vehicle and drive down a street, and every house or apartment that you see, it's like a portal. Understand what I'm saying? It's like a portal. And for every place that you go in, it's a whole nother world. Now, visiting, anybody can visit somebody, and then you get all the glitz and glamour, the politeness and hospitality. Yeah. But when you actually live, this is the environment and the people who are either, developing you, parenting you, and then the unforeseen things that take place. These are the things that are molding a person, that when they become older, these are going to be the traits that they carry until they recognize that a certain development in their life it's kind of like in your cache. What is it, cache? Right? You delete, because a lot of your shit in your computer is all sluggish, right? So you go in and you delete all this shit so that your computer can run optimal. So what happens when somebody has a lot of cache that has not deleted, and then yet their outlook on life, they feel like I'm normal. And then when they in these situations that are, volatile and high intense and, adrenaline pumping, does your, what they say, you are sum total of your life? Do these come into play when police officers are in these situations that seem from we who some of us have been in these situations, that you would think that a traffic stop, the worst that could happen is you getting a ticket. If you're already on the ticket, the worst you could probably do is either go into jail, right? But to think that you can be killed seems to be something that just blows one's mind. And so how do you reform individuals who may come in with baggage, even though there may be certain criteria that they take, let's say psychological tests and things like that? But sometimes people want to give people chances, right? They want to give you a chance. So you come in there, they give you the opportunity. Maybe you was somewhere on the borderline of where maybe the criteria kind of, they're going to say, well, we're going to give you an opportunity. Okay. But then certain things start falling out. Because we see that this former prosecutor who inherited the police department and tried to implement something as task force and was thinking about, training and use of force policy. But what good is policy when the person who has to implement it falls on them? It is their discretion. It is under how they interpret the situation, whether they're going to, implement certain abuses. And so we're talking about stuff that happens after the fact. We're not talking about stuff that is during. We're talking about after the fact. And this could be deadly for you who this may encounter. And so, again, as they go into the politically correctness and they talk to the family, tell them that, Black Lives Matter, Mr. Green's life matter, family life matter, the children lives matter. But this is all after the fact, right? Okay. And so when they went back to investigate in this situation, what they found out is that the investigators did not find any evidence of a fight between Owens and Green before he ended up getting shot 6 times. This was back in January 27th, right? And so what they end up finding after they did some more investigation, talking to more people, they come to find out that there was contradicted statements of the night of the shooting by the police department. Started with that spokeswoman. And because she came on and she talked about the fact that there was independent witnesses. Now, again, it's kind of like when we talk about the Breonna Taylor situation, when they talked about the sole only person out of 12, 13 people who supposedly they had interviewed to see whether they heard the policeman do an announcement, 1 out of 13. What kind of percentage is that? 1 in 13 or 1 in 12? Is that sufficient enough to say that they did when others who say they didn't, but is that because they weren't up or they were asleep, or they said no because based on what took place and how swift and fast it was that they say, well, we would have heard that if that would have been the case. So they kind of leave generalities in the minds of people so that you really can't detect that. So you're just going to go with the fact that, well, maybe he was the only person that was up because they kind of gave you a backstory and say, well, he was on there to pick up his daughter. Now, think about that. I had read where he said he was a truck driver and that he was coming to pick his daughter up at 1, 2 in the morning. Would you be picking your daughter up from a babysitter at 1, 2 in the morning? Right? Think about that. So I don't know how legit that is, but again, that's the story they had written. But the point I'm trying to make here is witnesses can make and break situations. So if they can get somebody to corroborate, and then the things that are seen behind the scenes when they can't get nobody to justify because of the position they're in, then this is what ended up happening. So this is what happened in this situation. Originally they said they found 2 witnesses, so maybe they were going to scour out and try to find somebody to get them to collaborate with them, but they did not find nobody. And so they were trying to find somebody, whether they heard the struggle of some sort, and they tried to say, well, did you hear anything that was coming out of the police car or anything like that? Or heard any loud bangs? Nothing. Nobody could testify or collaborate with the story that the police officer gave. And so what they said is that, again, they talk about the fact that it all started that Owens had handcuffed Mr. Green, had his hand behind his back, and responded to, again, a traffic accident. They said, according in the story, they said that they had found him sleeping in his vehicle. Remember that one of the ones in the Wendy's where the brother was sleeping at the wheel? And police woke him up out of his sleep. Then got arrested and he got killed too, right? Forgot the brother's name off the hand, but if anybody knows, put it in the comment for me, please. But he got killed too, right? A situation where somebody, again, could have been a long day, maybe been working all week, decided he want to go ahead and grab him something before he get home. It was a long line. It was a little slow about it. And, when you tired and you in that kind of pause state, it kind of dozed off. Because I don't remember any reports saying anything about anything in the system and all that. But let's just say hypothetically this was the position. And then let's say, okay, they said that the employees called the police and said there's a car out there that's idling. They kind of a little scared and maybe think somebody trying to stick them up. You know how people is. But so police come, find that he's sleeping, But based on what I've seen in the video, they allowed him to take the car and go park it. If you thought that he was too under the influence, why would you let him do that? But from that, you heard the conversation, and then he ended up running, and the rest is history and to be continued, right? So we see that in this situation, too, he found him sleeping in the vehicle. And they said that after he apprehended him, because there's a partition that's, the thing that separates the car. So I don't know what kind of police vehicle that is that you don't have a separation between the front seat and the back seat. So sometimes I've seen that if somebody doesn't have no front seat and they sitting in the back seat, they so damn tall, right? Kind of like a shack vehicle, right? And then they get sitting in the back seat while he driving the car. But anyway, so the police vehicle don't have that. So you're going to have him sit in the front seat. I've seen kids sit in the front seat. I've never seen anybody who's handcuffed, who's being apprehended by the police, to sit in the damn front seat. But according to what they say in their county, their policy says that they can, right? And so they can transport you when it's an arrested suspect. And that's because they say that there's a lack of that, again, partition. But they say, according to the prosecutor, is that Green had complied with the officer's command. So again, a lot of times everybody say, oh, you don't, just comply. Well, what happens when you do comply? Again, when you do everything that you are being commanded to do. Maybe just the fact that sometimes some people just having a bad day. They're, again, carrying luggage. They got psychological problems. They got family problems. They got economical problems, right? No one likes to take these things into consideration when we see these stories like that. And so what happens is somebody could take a situation of what they say, an anthill, and turn it into a mountain. And then you get these situations like you see right here. And so based on the fact that, again, they said they had taken him out of the car, handcuffed him, and you can see that he was at no point, no threat. They also know through the investigation when they went and looked, they said they didn't find any weapons on him, on his persons, or in his vehicle. Okay? So what could trigger when a man complies, he's handcuffed, you don't find no weapons, but then here he says smell PCP. So I don't know, again, people will use the drug theme to make that people are making rationale, either movements or unrational, maybe they're trying to be physically, confrontation with you, combative. I think that's why sometimes they use the drug theme, right? Because now that the person's gone, only one who would know is by the fact that you don't even have a video camera or you don't have anything to record. It's your word versus the deceased word. And I guess the power, going to go to you. And so they said that these two witnesses that they told that they either saw or had struggles before shooting Cotter. Yeah, they talking about they smell PCP. So that was going to be the kickstand they was trying to use. They're trying to say that there was witnesses who also seen it. They were going to collaborate the story. Couldn't find nobody, right? But you didn't have any camera. So how is this case going to go down? You don't have a camera. You don't have any witness to collaborate. You just have a dead man in the vehicle, knowing that the only, person there is an officer. So is that why they're going to pay this historic $20 million? Is that why they're going to give that? And then in the criminal case, will he be convicted? You see what I'm saying? So it's like you got all the right things in the position, but the one thing that you need to get the conviction seems not to be there because there's no video, there is no witnesses. Other fact that I don't even understand how they determined that he collaborated, that he was allowed him, unless that was a testimony of the officer in his report. But how did he end up getting shot 6 times? But they say his modus operandi, which is the things that you see in his background and his history, is that he had involved in 2 other shootings in his career as a policeman. Said back in 2011, he had fatally shot a man. Now, again, he done already killed the man back in 2011. According to his testimony, the man had pointed a gun at him. Right? And he said as he left an event at a police headquarters. Now, he was leaving the headquarters and somebody was bold enough. Here's the, I don't know, I guess he's in the police headquarters. So this is the police station. So you mean to tell me Muggs is bold enough out here that if I'm going to go rob a mug or stick a mug up and do this, we're going to do this thing, I'm going to stick the motherfucker up at the goddamn police station? That was out there to get me to believe. But I guess it's stuck, right? So again, according to him, according to this report, it said that that's what he did. He had decided to stick him up. And what they did is they ended up just putting him on police administrative leave or after that killing. I think he got police, so he must have got exonerated for that, right? But then even 2 years prior before then, which is 2009, he was on off duty. Again, this time he said somebody tried to rob him outside of his house. And he got, he looked like the type that you can be robbed. I don't see that, but that's what he said. But he said this would-be robber had fired a gun at him, didn't hit him. And he returned fire, but then dude got away. So the issue is everybody thinks that we only pick out the white cops, right? It's just something about being in the uniform sometimes that some individuals, they say they put an S on their chest. They become bigger than life. It's a commendable job. I know it's a tough job. But I think you have to be a certain type of individual that has that kind of, decorum, where you know how to be able to, sense situations and be a real great diplomat about situations. But see, when the job is based on the fact that it's about merit, convictions, arrest, does that somehow breed in, the employment or employee that, how they say we have champagne taste and water money, meaning that your eyes is bigger than your stomach, meaning that, okay, let's say if I make $50,000 a year, but I spend $65,000. So that means my $50,000 is $15,000 short. So in order for me to compensate that, I need to either move up in rank, get more overtime, right? So the best thing probably do is trying to get me some, whatever the criteria is to get up to go from private or whatever, how the, those statuses is to move up. And guess what? It becomes the citizenries that the one that have to do with the ambitions of people who want to move up. Sometimes I got to create certain situations that may be, it's close to something. Or just maybe your personality is rubbing me wrong, or I just don't like you, and I can create something out of here. And hopefully that if I throw enough shit in the wind, as they say, something might just stick. So that has to be part of the equation sometimes, but they're not going to look at it that way. So, is ambition sometimes part of the equation of why some of these things that be happening out here? I'm pretty sure it has its part in there. What percentage, we can't tell, but we know it has to be there. And so what happens is, as a black man being in that uniform, well, you get the same protection as a white cop. Say, what's the old Gladys Knight song? Don't let it go to your head. No. So can you let some position like this go to your head and you're doing things because you see your constituents, your comrades doing the same thing, and you say, well, I'm blue blood. I guess that's what they say, bleeding blue. And, I am an officer, just like he an officer, but does race come into his way? And will you become, as time goes, as we get to March 22nd, 2021, as that proceeding comes, will they hold you accountable? Or will you get the presidential treatment or preferential treatment of qualified immunity? Well, we'll be staying tuned for that. So this again, All right, so that was that there, right? So $20 million settlement for the killing of a handcuffed Willie Green. But this time, most people would assume that it was a white cop killing a black cop, but this was just a cop, period. So it kind of take away that equation. And, those who sit up in here, it's kind of like, well, you try to think that sometimes we're biased and that we only show just white cops. And it's not that the fact that we as black people are against cops. We know we need cops. Again, as I said, it's a commendable job. But we have to be honest that, again, there's a human defect, especially being in this country. That this country breeds a certain kind of animosity, just the natural air, just smelling the United States air. We're not going to talk about all the things that we want to say. Give me your tithe, you're poor. This is the land of... Oh, that all sound good. That's poetic prose. You can poetically write that out as part of what this country is about. But when we be truthful about it, especially me as a descendant of slavery of this land, right? I have a better intuitive understanding of you as well as you think you know me. So that's why you do the things you do when I start coming, or we start coming with truth, is because we know. It's kind of like saying when somebody who's in close affinity and kinship with you, even though there may be some differences here, but everybody else who come from every place else around the world starts to try to learn. It's a difference when you've always been there, right? So we've seen the good, the bad. I don't know if say the good, but the good, the bad, the ugly, as they say, right? We've not seen all the seasons. We've not seen all the so-called development of soul thing. They say, well, haven't we changed? That was 500 years ago. Well, shit, okay, 500 years before the change. Then went to 1960 and you changed. And 2020, it was still changing. So, wait a minute. Ain't no change. It just seemed to be all about, change is slow. You're too slow, right? And then when you get to the point where it becomes so relevant of the wrongdoing, that you say, you know what? You're complaining too much. So people will start using cliche words, reform, and you can't reform unless you're talking about reforming humanity. It's the United States humanity has a flaw in it. Those who perceive to be the dominant, who won't look at themselves in the mirror to say that there may be some problems here, and then the people that take on that persona of you, then they breed the same defect that they say if you got a defect. So how does this thing ever get cleared up? How does it ever get summed up? It won't. It won't. And so it's best to just do reverse psychology and put it on the other person and say, it's you the one that's the problem. It's easy to do that. Reform sounds good. Right? All that sounds good. Well, we're going to reform. We're going to do more policy. We're going to do some better training. We're going to use more resource. But it's a human problem. It's a people problem. See, again, if we are considered a sum total of all our life experiences, and let's say, again, as I was talking about having portals, and every place that you see that a door is a portal to a world, is the people who live in there, families and raising and so forth. We don't see all that. You just see the house as you drive by. Some of the houses look nice. The grass is green, cut nice and everything. But the people inside, you have no idea what's going on in there. You don't understand what's being taught in there. You don't know all the abuses that's going on there. You don't know the love, all that's part of that portal when you go inside them doors. And so what we want to pretend is if like all these homes that we see and that the lifestyle, everybody's good. And it's just this segment of people over here seem to be like they can't get right. See, they don't want nothing. They're in poverty. They're always bickering. They're crime. They're drugs. But we're not going to talk about behind the curtain with the wizard who doing all that. We're not going to talk about none of that. We're just going to say you. So how do you reform that? You can't reform that. Because that becomes the self-actualization of yourself to admit that something, like looking at yourself in the mirror. Are you honest with what you see? Or do you just keep telling yourself, I'm beautiful, I'm handsome? And that's what we do. We're great at that. We're good at putting on the facade. But we don't want to really deal with the core element. And some people want to perpetuate the things that they know that keeps this. And I think maybe it's just the fact that it's beneficial for some people to keep the old game going. You ever seen the movie Revolver? Remember how in the Revolver he was like, he wanted to get him to fear him? Fear me, right? And he was just looking at him, he wouldn't be feared, he wouldn't be scared of him no more. And then he just started crying, right? He lost his power. But he used to intimidate and make you fear of him. But when you lose that, then it becomes, now you become who you are. And you don't just like yourself, right? Some people just don't like themselves. And so what ended up happening is what? You got to keep perpetuating that keeps people in that position. You got to keep them in that. And so we use the apparatuses of, police and the system. And then we use the media. We're going to paint you up to make you look. And so those people who don't know the game, like we know the game, well, you make us look bad. And then you have a way of infiltrating that through, let's say, education. Like, let's say, I remember reading in Mein Kampf, right, with Hitler's book, right? And he said he didn't care about, the adults and the ones that say, like Mr. Blows Your Mind, who be trying to, come with stories and with the story behind it, even just try to tell you the way I see it, right? And let's just say I'm just trying to help to correct in some ways of looking at things. He said, well, don't worry about Mr. Blow Your Mind. He'll die off. But see, we have our institutions that's going to keep perpetuating the way that we trying to get everybody brainwashed. So how are you ever going to reform something when the mechanism that you use was flawed from the beginning? So if you want change, it can't be just to look at, say, reform as police. It's the foundation. You understand? It's like your house. The foundation is not good. So you're going to have to either... And that's not what you want. See, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to have a real reformation. We just want to say we're going to reconstruct. Foundation. How you going to change anything when you still got the same foundation? We're just going to build on top of the bad foundation and think we're going to get a different result. Oh, you want to try to cut me, right? I know nobody will talk like this. Yeah? That's what you do. You can't break what I'm doing, man. See? That's who you are. See? You like somebody who just keep telling you it's okay. It's okay. You don't like nobody tell you something wrong here. And it's not everybody else you pointing at. They said when you point your finger that there's three fingers back, you point back at you. Matter of fact, the thumb itself is even trying to curve back at you. It's you, right? But anyway, somehow I hope people not thinking that throwing millions of dollars at black folks to have them, die at the hands of police is the remedy. Because it's not. Because it's just like you just constantly building and making it worse. Because where does the money come from when they keep paying out the settlements? Coming from the people. Well, right now, again, everybody talking about and looking for stimulus money and people can't find jobs. And okay, then it's breeding more. It's like it's just breeding more and more problems. So it's like, what's that Ouroboros where the snake is eating his own ass? Well, look like this was about going to happen here. If you don't get right, can't get right, what's going to happen, y'all? The snake going to eat his own ass. That's all that's going to be left is the snake is going to eat his own ass. And so, that's what it is, y'all. You can go ahead and, try to, make my stream connection ain't good and you in there doxing and all. Man, you putting all that on yourself. See, that's the thing. That's the difference between, let me tell you something about, there's a white man that's out here trying to tell y'all who VADOS is. Y'all don't want to hear him. Y'all actually think he crazy, right? He trying to tell you about, do you know what time it is? And do you know that you're in the day and age of that the people who you doing all this against, there's something about them that even but you deny. But you will say, because I have weaponry and guns, that's going to make that be the all be all. Sometimes your game plan ain't always going to fall the way you think it going to fall. Even though you think that the way you see is everything is the way set up the way it is. Just think about the way when people in this case has went on. Why is all this stuff falling out if they thought they had the game down pat, that they could just tell everybody anything and then reconstruct it and then think that you could sell that to everybody? Then when the truth come, now everybody getting mad at people because they talking about the damn truth. Then how can you say you're about for justice and righteousness when that ain't what you really about? As long as it's not you, then it's okay. If it's anybody else, that's fine. I don't know, man. Y'all got to figure that shit out for yourself. But you keep telling lies to yourself, and you keep hating on somebody like myself. Truth gonna always be it is. The Creator gonna use all kind of people. It ain't about you getting rid of nobody. The truth gonna be here longer than you gonna be here. You can make the science and try to procreate through science, and it's gonna still come out messed up because you ain't gonna never be able to make. You're never gonna have. It's like how they used to say back in the day with the Coke. You used to put the Coke in the safe so that nobody can get the formula, so that nobody could. And then you got Pepsi. They try to make it so they got a kind of weak brand of Coke, and then you got all these other ones. So nobody can make Coke because nobody got the damn right ingredients or know the formula. No matter what y'all do in your science, because a lot of times y'all in your science, what you do is what? Certain things that you don't have, you throw it away and call it junk DNA. Remember that? Remember when it was called junk DNA? But you don't want to tell nobody that's what y'all studying trying to get. You're trying to get the God particle. I don't care how long you think you're going to be on here. You ain't going to never be able to figure that out. You know why? Because it wasn't meant for you to figure it out. But you keep on doing what you're doing. The messages are here. Take it how you want to take it. Anyway, this is the most hated show on the black corner of YouTube. The channel that can't get no views, but they sure be over here making sure that they suppress this show. Anybody who's never been over here before, you better ask yourself, what is it that this individual over here is saying? Everybody else can do all that crazy stuff they doing here, and they can get views, they can get all that. But this channel here, you know what it was? Ever since I made that video April 1st of 2014 about the white extinction, I didn't say nothing about we was going to do anything to you. I didn't say anything about race hating on you. I just told you what the stats was and what the news told you. And you've been all out your way to suppress this channel. Why? What makes you feel that way? Well, like I told you, there's a white man out here trying to tell you who we are. You better figure out who he is. He's trying to tell you, and y'all fighting against him. But the plan that you got, and what was said the other night, talking about, yes sir, we on deck, we waiting. Whenever you give us the call, we ready. I think there was a story in the Bible. I forgot who it was. They're being surrounded. Got caught at the mountain. And it was like, oh, they're going to get us. They got us at the edge. He said, look up over the mountains. There's more of them than it is them. But they couldn't see them. Again, I'm the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. To the next show, y'all. To the next show, y'all. To the next show.